All right. We find ourselves in a very frightening time in the state of New York. This country, the United States of America, was founded upon the ideals of freedom of religion. It's not that freedom of religion is one of many things that America was based on. The reason why people came to this country from all over the world was to seek freedom of religion. And the Constitution says that Congress shall make no laws regarding the establishment of a religion, meaning that there shouldn't be any official state church, the way you have, Church of England or other countries, they have official church, and nor to get in the way of the free exercise thereof, to impede the free exercise thereof. And we see right now in New York State, now I understand really in the originalist sense, that was talking about, for sure, the Establishment Clause was only for the federal government. But the Free Exercise Clause has, I think, traditionally, always, and originally been intended for all the states as well and local governments, meaning in the original context of the Constitution, state and local authorities were, and really technically under the Constitution, are allowed to have their own local and state religions. But even in those cases, they were never allowed to impede the free exercise of other religions other than the state religions. And this is bared out in history that there were indeed state and local churches that were the official government churches. That was one of the rights that was relegated to the states and to the local governments and to the people in the original sense. We see that even Jefferson himself, as governor of Virginia, openly proclaimed Thanksgiving proclamations, which he never did as president, because he felt that as president, believing in federalism, that was something that should not be allowed on the federal level, but should be allowed on the state level. But we're digressing really from the point at hand right now. There is a movement among members of the New York State Assembly to outlaw traditional religious instruction that has been for years in New York. It's been protected. There have always been parochial schools here in the state, Catholic schools, Jewish schools, and so forth. And there's a tremendous threat to these things, and really it's a threat to freedom of religion. Now, New York state law requires private schools to provide at least an equivalent education level as the public schools. The fact of the matter is the yeshivas, every yeshiva, even those few that do not provide any instruction in English, provide a level of education that is far, far, far superior to any public school. I can testify that because I went to a very good public school, and I went to a wonderful yeshiva, and I have taught in all types of yeshivas, and that's the case. And it's really a certain level of cultural arrogance and so forth to try to impose, particularly that we see secular Jews like Ellen Jaffe, who hate Judaism, who spit on the graves of their ancestors, who are trying to outlaw the freedom of religion that Jews enjoy here in this state. It's very shocking. We see what's happening now in England, and England doesn't have the freedom of religion the way we have in America. They have official tolerance of religion, but they don't have religious freedom. But America was founded on religious freedom, and so this is something that all people, even non-religious people, if they value freedom, should really strongly oppose the movement by Ellen Jaffe and Ken Zebrowski, both of which have been fighting against the Orthodox communities in Rockland County for many years, very openly, very vehemently, and always have been claiming, well, they were caring about safety and this and that. But now their real intentions have been proven, have been shown out and brought out by virtue of their opposition to religious freedom here in this country that was founded on religious freedom. I've spoken many times. It's important that Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, and secular humanists and all kinds of folks should get together and fight for freedom, because when you set bad precedents like this against freedom, it really brings us into a very, very dangerous place, and it really can lead to fascism. Now, I'm personally not in any way opposed to secular education. I went to college myself, but there are a few people who attended Hasidic schools who are complaining that they feel like the education they received didn't meet to the desires of what they looked for later in life after leaving the community. But it's very specious to suppose that in some way an education is some kind of panacea. It's extremely specious, because here I myself, I went to college, I have my BA. I'm not making, tons and tons of money. I can't afford to live in Rockland County or even Orange County. I live up in Sullivan County. I'm happy. It's quiet. But it's expensive to live in the city or in the suburbs. So I live in a rural area because it's cheap, and I'm very happy here. But it's very difficult to find gainful employment in New York because of the poor economy and so forth. But I know folks who never went to college, some of which maybe goofed off in school, even though the schools, did give them English education, but they were goofing off and they didn't pay attention. And yet, God has blessed them, and they're very successful. And they don't require any government assistance, anything. And they never had to go to college, never had to learn English, all these things. And I love learning and education. So, but I love freedom much more. The Constitution doesn't talk about education. The Bill of Rights doesn't guarantee a right to an education, but it does guarantee this seminal founding document of the Bill of Rights, which is so important, which was the key to getting the Constitution eventually ratified, the promise that eventually there would be a Bill of Rights and so forth. This is so incredibly important and basic and fundamental to America. Education is not. There were many, many great people throughout American history who didn't have an education. Many, Thomas Edison comes to mind. Here's a man, didn't go past third or fourth grade, and he had more. And not that he was such a good person. I'm not a fan of his particularly, but he accomplished a great deal, and he had more patents than anyone else in American history, although other people are coming close. We have plenty of successful people. Most millionaires, new millionaires in America who earned their millions on their own, never finished college. And some never finished high school. And most people who went to college and got a degree make, $40,000-$50,000 a year or less. And I make less than half of that myself with my college degree. So it's really, really specious and foolish and empty to think that somehow that trampling on freedom of religion, it's not about education, it's not about caring about people, it's about fascism. And that's the problem. It's unfortunate that our communities, I myself have always voted Republican, but unfortunately so many people in our communities have voted Democrat, voted for people who don't share our values, and this is what we're getting for that, unfortunately. So let's hope that we come back, although unfortunately in New York State most of the Republicans also aren't the real constitutionalists. I'm not even though I'm registered as Republican, because I want to be able to vote in the Republican primaries here in New York and so forth, I don't know if I share all of the values of the mainstream of the Republican Party. I certainly have respect that was the, the party of Lincoln and of Reagan and so forth, and I respect them very much. But I really feel that a more libertarian approach, which was the Jeffersonian approach, and an originalist constitutionalist approach, is really what America needs to get back to its roots and to receive God's blessings again. And we're looking forward to a day when things will be restored to good ways. On one hand, we were woken up by things like the removal of prayer from public schools and so forth. But now that has happened, we can appreciate it more and go back to it, God willing, and restore America to its greatness. And I don't imagine that a New Yorker like Donald Trump is the answer. We really need a real constitutionalist like Ted Cruz. If you're still in a state that's still voting, Ted Cruz has said that if he wins Nebraska and other states, that he will consider getting back into the race. It's certainly a very important thing that folks should consider, because to really save America and to really restore America to its founding principles, not fascism, not populism, certainly not the agenda of the left, but also not progressive